Warning, the following video contains spoilers for Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. It seems like only yesterday I was saying we have months of respite before Phase 5 of the MCU kicks off with the third Ant-Man, and now, here we are. The movie had its wide release on February 17th, but critics have had an opportunity to see it a few days earlier. Welcome to the review desk. I'm Desmond Kerk, and today I'll review Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. The scores have been less than flattering, so it begs the question, is Ant-Man a great kickoff for Phase 5, or an indication that the MCU is slowly losing steam? The good. The visuals in this film are beautiful. In this day and age, we often take CGI for granted, but the landscapes in this film are gorgeously rendered, and seeing them in 3D is well worth the price of admission. But it's not just the way the film is rendered, the designs are something literally out of this world. In our journey through the MCU, we've seen deep space, magical realms. It's very difficult to make a concept such as the quantum realm look different from all the fantastical locations that have already been featured. The nebulous skies serve as a constant reminder that we're not in Kansas anymore, and they're populated by strange and terrifying beings. Otherworldly sounds surround the characters as we follow them into ever stranger territories. Even buildings spring to life and indicate a kind of relationship the human mind has no understanding of. The same can be said for the design of Kang's armor. Now, this is what Kang originally looked like in the comics. Over time, his design was tweaked for the modern age. The detail in his film armor is amazing, right down to the texture, simulating the woven material in the comics. Kang is known for wearing a helmet, which covers his face in blue while allowing for facial expressions and his mouth to move. In the film, the protective shielding over his face allows him to share that same blue hue of his comic book counterpart, without looking either unconvincing or ridiculous. A wise decision, since it also helps elevate the performance of the actor in question. Paul Rudd is amazing in this film. He's always seemed like an overlooked talent in Hollywood, which is why I was super happy when he landed the role of Ant-Man. The MCU has always managed to favor skill over fame, and Rudd deserves every bit of love he gets from this performance. He conveys the conflict he feels as a father, pained by the fact that fate denied him the chance to see his daughter grow up, trying to balance protecting her and making up for lost time, while simultaneously not being so strict as to push her away. She's a grown woman now, and that can be very hard to come to terms with. He didn't have a chance to witness how her growth, both physically and mentally, has made her more capable in his absence, so it's only natural that he'll still be worried. It's also nice to see the bigger impact Ant-Man can have when he needs to. Driven by the instinct to keep Cassie safe, Scott even stands up to Kang with an unmatched fierceness. And in the end, he devises a mean to rid the world of this seemingly unstoppable foe. Ant-Man is often underestimated, the guy who can shrink down and talk to ants, but he proves in this film you'd better look out for the little guy. Michael Douglas, while not heavily featured in the film, has a less anxious and more confident feel to his performance, possibly because Hank is more at ease now that Janet has returned to his life. And then there's the absolute standout of the film, Jonathan Majors. Majors brings a certain regality, or rather imperial touch, to the character of Kang. He displays his range by giving us a Kang who's wildly different from the He Who Remains variant he portrayed in the Loki television series. He's arrogant, but not in the sense of a spoiled child, rather someone who knows he is superior to his foes in many ways, a stark contrast to the somewhat flippant He Who Remains. He has technology centuries ahead of anyone facing him, allowing him to make short work of them. This, coupled with his genius-level intellect, makes him a very dangerous enemy. In the Marvel books, he's considered one of the most intelligent characters and has matched wits with the likes of Doctor Doom. But you can't accuse him of being cocky, as he seems to walk the walk as much as he talks the talk. Casually referencing having killed several Avengers so many times to the point that all the killings start blurring together is quite a feat. He also doesn't rely solely on his futuristic tools, as he's shown to be more than capable fighter, and much like Thanos, isn't too arrogant to get down in the trenches and fight. This is a comparison that is repeatedly made by viewers, as Kang is set to be the big bad of the new phases, as Thanos was of the first three. But he's not simply a facsimile of the Mad Titan. Thanos would often explain to others why his plan needs to succeed, seeking not to rule, but to ensure that the universe understands the reasoning behind his undertakings. Kang, on the other hand, has no such noble intentions. The Conqueror doesn't mince words over when it comes to his plans, often stating his convictions as fact and demanding that others do what he needs to achieve his goals. Anyone wasting his time is crushed. While he enlists M.O.D.O.K to capture the fugitives, Kang reminds the once human construct that he is not only M.O.D.O.K's better, but his master, in whose presence he is to remain silent. Majors does all this while avoiding stoicism by bringing a certain code of honor to Kang. Janet saves his life, and he promises to reunite her with her daughter, a promise he is eager to keep out of gratitude, pleading with Janet not to throw her chance at a reunion with Hope away over a conflict that does not involve her. He even shows frustration at the fact that those who oppose him concern themselves with seemingly trivial matters such as the well-being of individuals other than Kang himself, and fail to grasp his grand plan, a grand plan that will often involve sacrifices of his choice. Majors also portrays various different versions of Kang in the post-credits scene. The movie says a lot by sometimes saying nothing. Kang's fighting style and grunts during his attacks indicate that he is indeed a seasoned fighter who has been waging battle for ages. He's fast and connects his attacks in an effort to make quick work of Scott Lang. He's not the type of villain stupid enough to gloat or prolong the fight. Kang having a connection to Janet and facing off against her and Hank is a nice nod to Avengers Volume 1, Issue 8, the first comic Kang appeared in his Kang identity anyway. It's time travel, don't think too much about it. There's a very deep parent-child dynamic with Scott and Cassie, and Janet and Hope alternatively. On Janet's side, she keeps her experiences in the quantum realm a secret from her family, in an effort to protect them and spare them any worrying about Kang's possible retaliation. Hope is visibly upset over this, and it makes sense. She hasn't seen her mother for 30 years, a time in which her father himself kept the circumstances of Janet's disappearance a secret. So now, she has to deal with both parents deceiving her. Remember, a lie of omission is still a lie. Janet needs to realize that Hope is a grown woman and would be more than capable of handling harsh truths. The same dynamic is at play between Cassie and Scott, with Cassie being in a more rebellious age than Hope. Where Hope scoffs at her mother's reluctance and backs off when she deems it necessary, Cassie is confrontational to the point of being irreverent. Scott himself, much like Janet, has trouble coming to terms with the fact that his little girl isn't, well, little anymore. He still seeks to protect her by keeping her away from any potential threats, as any parent would, but in doing so, also gives the impression he doesn't trust her to make proper decisions of her own. Of course, her own actions don't contribute to a change of mind on his part at all, repeatedly getting arrested over matters she could have walked away from, and displaying a certain naivete that comes with her age when she's adamant about staying and fighting with the displaced residents of the quantum realm, stating, Just because it's not happening to you doesn't mean it isn't happening. A noble sentiment, but Scott is older, wiser, and he's a parent. Being a father myself, trust me, I too would focus on the fact that this simply isn't my fight, and that my main priority is getting my child to safety. The fact that Cassie ends up threatened by Kang only proves Scott's point. It's not easy to abandon the needs of others, but knowing that it will result in your child being safe makes it the obvious choice, no questions asked. The first two Ant-Man films featured some clever storytelling by Luis, who has become as much of a staple to the series as his unique method of relaying information. Unfortunately, he's missing from this film. Even though I was looking forward to more of his funny soliloquies, the movie has an excellent sense of humor. It even manages to make a death scene funny. As for the casualty in question, look, M.O.D.O.K's cool, but not the kind of character you'd mind only seeing once in the franchise. The MCU has often been accused of jamming humor into its movies at the most inopportune moments, as if to meet some sort of quota of quips. Love and Thunder is probably the biggest offender, with almost everyone in the film being a quip machine. There's none of that in Quantumania. The humor that's there is fitting for the scene it's featured in, and transitions to more serious matters don't feel jarring because of it. A welcome surprise was someone I absolutely didn't expect to see again, Darren Cross as M.O.D.O.K. Oh my god, it's absolutely brilliant! It makes perfect sense that after his suit's malfunction in the first Ant-Man, Darren would end up deformed enough to become M.O.D.O.K. And this is what I love about the MCU. In the comics, Darren Cross and M.O.D.O.K. have nothing to do with each other. But this is changed with a purpose, and it's absolutely perfect. I love M.O.D.O.K. in this movie. The sheer blasé manner in which characters who know Darren respond to his appearance. Corey Stoll is such a charismatic actor with a unique voice, and it's an absolute joy to see him return in this manner. Because I can tell you, I never liked M.O.D.O.K. in the comics. Last but not least, I have to talk about Zalem. He was an interesting character with some pretty cool abilities, but what surprised me the most was that when he was slain by Kang, I actually felt sad. He didn't have a lot of screen time and almost no character development, but still, seeing him perish felt terrible. It's because the movie focused on the cause of the rebels, a cause Zalem was obviously very dedicated to. And how often do we really see people die in these films? It also reminded me of Dr. Fate in Black Adam. When he died, it felt cheap and meaningless, and the film gave me no reason to care about it at all. An interesting contrast, and one more reason I'm happy James Gunn is now in charge of DC Studios, so that we can get some more emotionally engaging films from that franchise. The Bad. Emma Fuhrmann portrayed an older Cassie Lang in Endgame. In this film, she's replaced by Katherine Newton. I'm not sure what the reason was for this recasting. It could be that the 21-year-old Fuhrmann might look too old to portray the 18-year-old Cassie Lang. Newton does look closer to a teenager, even though she's 26, 5 years older than Fuhrmann. Fact of the matter is, the recasting happened, and honestly, I didn't like Newton. She delivers a somewhat unconvincing performance. I didn't feel much of a connection to her character because she lacked warmth and charm. I'm hoping she still has an opportunity to grow as an actress. The fight scenes between CGI characters are incredibly well choreographed, with many shots rendered without cuts, making it look like an extended fight scene where the camera pans in such a way that you know who's doing what and where they are while they're doing it. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for the fights between live action characters. Kang and Scott going at it was great, but as is the case with the MCU, this fight was cut to pieces, making it harder to enjoy. A real shame since it was a pretty good fight. The film at times feels like it lacked some punch. The circumstances that led to Scott agreeing to help Kang had less depth than I initially expected. The trailer gave the impression Kang would offer to send Scott back in time to right after the snap so that he could regain the time he lost and see his daughter growing up, and as Scott would be conflicted as this would represent a tempting offer. The scenes in the trailer with the multiple Scotts interacting with each other also gave the impression that we'd be seeing more of these kind of probability shenanigans. Imagine two conflicted Scotts confront each other about how to handle Kang and his offer. The movie is called Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, but we don't see much development for Wasp, or any other characters for that matter. The focus is more on Scott. Not even Cassie has a real arc. Even though these are characters we already know, it's still a little disappointing that they're kind of sidelined in favor of getting the main story rolling. Verdict. I'm going to award Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania 3.5 Thunderbolts. As a start of Phase 5, it's not going to be an all-too-epic movie, and that's the point. There's still a long way to go before we see the next phase's epic conclusion. In the words of Scott Lang himself, there's room to grow.